Hey, what's up? Welcome to Degen Ed. That's degenerative education, meaning none of this is financial advice. Just me having fun looking at charts like the chart behind me, which is of Krispy Kreme, ticker symbol DNUT. No real reason why I have that up there. I just have the Degen Ed list up there of stocks that I have covered. And yeah, I'm happy to go over some of those, but also happy to take requests as this is Ticker Request Live, which I try to do every Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern, stream for an hour or two, just going over, whatever you guys request, talking about the week ahead, and yeah, reflecting on the great weekends that we've had. So I hope you guys had great weekends. I hope you're ready for a good start to the week. I've been working all weekend, so I'm excited to have the next couple of days off. But it never really feels like a day off unless, the market's also closed. But yeah, I'm really excited. I think that, the rallies that we saw last week, and I think that they're going to continue, Santa Claus rally, whatnot. So I think that there's a lot of great stuff coming up ahead. And yeah, I'm just stoked about it. And hey, what's up? And so I'm just checking in on the chat. I see that Chess Dad said that he's ready at 7:30. So hopefully he's still here. Nameless, what's up? How's it going? I'm doing good. It's been a long weekend of work, and work is always very frustrating. Doesn't really stimulate me that much. But it's money. So I'm glad that's over. Glad I got the next couple days off. And yeah, I've just been really enjoying like the weekly options videos that I've been doing and just like getting more familiar with that data. And so I've been having more successful weeks just, planning to be in and out of trades more or less based on those options. And, yeah, last week wasn't like a huge week for me because I tend to be fairly low risk, but it was a really good week for me. So I'm excited about that, and I think that it's going to continue into the new week. And Mr. Bagel Show, uh, I get a few right, yeah. And actually, I think I've been like kind of cutting back on the number of videos I put out just because. I think it's better, when it's, quality over quantity type of thing. And, I just put out a video recently on BlackBerry. I'm super stoked about that chart. Happy to go over it with you guys if you want me to dive into it. And then also another one that I did, SoundHound AI. That has ripped faces off. I did not partake in it, unfortunately. But, fortunately, I think a lot of people have made some good money on that. And I think it's probably going to keep going. So, always exciting. Hey, Benjamin, what's up? And if you would like, I can go over XTIA. I can also go over Blink if you would like. But before I get into that request, I'm going to go over Nameless's because he is 1 minute ahead of you in the chat requesting Pags. And yeah, I think when I was like scrolling through this list that I have here, I believe I have Pags up here, not too far down it, but maybe not. I'll probably just, well, it's on percentage change, and so it looks like some of the stuff like Bitcoin, like Doge, is moving. So I'm just going to pull up the request list that's got nothing on it, and I will add, let's see, Pags for Nameless. I will do XTIA for Benjamin and Mr. Bagel Show. And I will also throw up Blink, which, I could go over that pretty quick. But first, I am going to go over Nameless's request of Pags. But first, I should say I prepared it in advance of the stream. That's why I started it more or less on time. I've got a nice little old fashioned here. So cheers to you guys. I hope that you guys had a great weekend and that you're looking forward to a great week ahead. I think we do have, I believe, inflation numbers coming up. Also, GameStop earnings on Tuesday, so that might spark some volatility in, retail heavy stocks. And yeah, so hopefully the weekend was great. The week ahead's looking good. And yeah, I'm happy to be here streaming with you guys. So thanks for joining. Cheers. All right. Oh, and also I should note too, because I am really just in the analysis that I do, I am learning as I go, and this channel effectively documents that. But somebody who has in my view a really great track record, I think he's a good communicator, Very patient, but he's also like a no BS kind of guy. Colin Gladman. I did just repost his video that he put out tonight. I posted it on the channel, so you can find it on the community page. I'll actually just pull that up before I dive into the chart so you guys can see it. And so let's see. So on the DGen Ed channel, if you go over to the community tab, I just posted this. I watched it right before the stream. He goes over SoFi, which, I was dead on with filling one gap, but I was completely wrong waiting for the second gap to be filled on the downside. 6 was the low, the bottom, and he did some SoFi analysis in that video. Also, Unity Software, GameStop, AMC, SPY, the indexes and stuff, and also like Peloton, I think Apple as well, some others. But yeah, I mean, it's a 23 minute long video, and I just think his analysis is great. So I would recommend checking out his video. It might give you some good ideas. He's very bullish for basically the next month, and I share that sentiment as far as Santa Claus rally and moving towards the inauguration. Once the new president, Trump, is sworn in, I think that, just because it's an adjustment, it's a shift, there might be some volatility around that. Whether it's good or bad, I'm not sure. But I think leading up to that, it's just bullish. Once things adjust, I think it will probably continue to be bullish. And so he shares that sentiment, and he definitely has a lot, more behind his views because, he's just a much more established trader than I am. And so Mr. Bagel Show, I see your other requests there, but I'm just going to continue on with these. Once I get through them, then I'll add yours, the additional ones. I won't count XTIA against you because Benjamin also requested that. But first, I'm going to go over Pags. And so this is one that I was looking at because I think I had a small position. This is when I was, starting to think about stop losses. And yeah, I think like I maybe would have had I don't know if I had a stop loss at 77 or if I was thinking about a lower price. Let's look at this on the, so I think I was thinking, no, I guess I might have had a stop loss around, 777. So that gap fills, so that gap has been filled, which that is just, if you're curious, that's based on the high from November 10th of 2023, or sorry, not the high, the close was at a price of 777. So there's that blue dashed line there. And then the low the following day was 781. So there's about a 4-cent gap there. And it didn't get filled. And so I was kind of looking for that to possibly get filled. And actually what I could see happening with this, and I'm starting to recognize, it's like, what you want to see, or maybe this is just a, like a sophomore view of it. We want to get the higher class analysis, but that you want to see higher lows. But another thing that can be a very bullish move is sweeping the prior lows, because somebody, let's say, established a position at like $7 a share here. And from that, they saw massive gains going up, let's see, over 100%. And so I feel like maybe this is kind of an analogy for like, I have a very small Tesla position I bought at a dip, and my plan for that is I'm never going to sell it. It's a very small position, but Tesla's more expensive, especially considering, the stocks I go over that are in the 1s and 10s place. So my plan is like, I'm never going to sell it. If it comes back to my level, let's say for this stock, Pags, buy in at 7, maybe I'd have a stop loss below it. And actually with Tesla, I do have a stop loss right above my average, about 10% above my average. But sometimes people would, let's say buy here and then say, okay, well, there's no way price is going to come down to either 7, just being a whole dollar number, or 693, that being this prior low here. If it comes back to that, I'm going to have a stop loss and then I'll reassess. But if it doesn't, I'm just going to hold forever. So that's kind of like the similarities that I see with Tesla, or at least my position in Tesla. Again, very, very small, but something I'm just very proud of. It's more than 2x up, so I'm just stoked about that. And that's kind of what you see here. But then over time, it fades, it pulls back. And so it's possible there are some people, that would have stop losses above this low because maybe that's where their average is. I kind of doubt it because that'd be like timing the bottom perfectly here. But, looking at the chart here, they might also say, oh, well, I'm going to have a stop loss at or below 693. And so what this might do in order to form a bottom is to sweep the lows, get out anybody that has a stop loss there. And then, let's say, I'm a small time trader. I got a position here with a stop loss at $6.90 because that's like 6.69. It's funny. It's below this low here. And so I am just going to wait and expect that to not get filled. But then it gets filled. A bunch of people are like me, and they have stop losses there. And this is all hypothetical. I don't have a position in Pags. Once that stop order gets filled, then, the big firms can scoop up all of those cheap shares because they swept the lows. They got people's out of their positions with their stop losses. And then they load the boat and then it goes higher. So at this point with it at $7.11, I feel like it could go lower than 693, but then at that point, I would look for some bottoming signals, like a big wick to the downside, like this big red candle here, closing the week lower than it's been, but basically over the past year. Let's see, what was this date over here? Yeah, so this is the lowest close we've seen in the past year. And just looking at this, it doesn't look so great. Maybe it's a fake out though, it could be because it just looks pretty bad. But with this lower close, I could see it heading a little bit lower, sweeping 693. And then rather than seeing a big red candle like this crossing that line, I would want to see a wick below and then a close above. And that could be suggesting, hey, maybe the bottom's in. And so what I would like to see is a candle like this one here, where it's a big wick to the downside, crossing below 693, and then a close. It doesn't necessarily have to be a green candle, but a close in the upper half, ideally the upper quarter of the trading for that day, and then to see how that holds, because then that puts in, a low that you want to be holding. But of course here, with this low here, we ended up closing below it. So this looks to me like it's going to continue lower. So I look for a sweep of 693, a close above 693, and then to see it kind of like a V-shaped recovery. And that's kind of Colin Gladman talked about that in his video that, I had posted on the channel. I don't even know if I mentioned his name, Colin Gladman, but yeah, does great analysis, also posts a lot of great stuff on X, so I recommend following him as well over there. But yeah, a V-shaped recovery or a V-shaped bounce, because if you see something come down and then it just consolidates here, that might be a bear flag that's going to be going lower. But this, hit this low, below $7 a share and then started to bounce and then actually retested over here, hitting a low of $7.29. So, broke below 7, then moved up, pulled back these nice little wicks over here to the downside, not getting to as low as $7. The low here on November 8th of 2023 was $7.30. And so that was, a great opportunity to add, before going higher. And then again here, you see kind of like a V-shaped pullback here, and also over here, it's kind of suggesting that the top's in. So I'd look for this to be wicking below, but not closing below 693. So hopefully that's helpful. Yeah, no problem, Nameless. And and then so I will go over, since Benjamin requested it in a comment. I'll go over Blink real quick, and then I'll get into XTIA. So Blink, looking at the daily chart here, I was looking at this and just thinking that, I feel like this green line here, it's at 153 or, 150 also, that just being, thinking in dollars and quarters, $1.50, it's, I think an important level to be holding, but we do have this, let's see, low from September 9th, which was $1.53. So I got that green line there. And following, a break of it, like sweeping that low, kind of what I was talking about with Pags, we did get, this red candle closing below that level, but it didn't confirm. It didn't get a secondary close below that. The following day, so this was a close below 153, closing at 152 on November 15th. The following day, green candle closing above. Still not looking super clear whether or not the bottom's in. This is, not a V-shaped bottom. This is, consolidating down here. So maybe it's bearish, especially with these big wicks to the upside getting rejected from this 236. But considering this, retracement that I have drawn here, we have been holding that low of 148. So I think that's good. We are still putting in higher lows, and we haven't had a secondary close lower than the low from this day when it broke and closed below 153. And so the low on November 15th was $1.50. We have not seen any closes below $1.50. On the 21st of November, we saw a close $1.52 again. And so, I think that this might start to look like it's breaking down if we see a close below $1.50. Just right around where the cursor is. I have an alert here at $1.48. And yeah, we haven't tested that. So I think this looks like it could be putting in a bottom, but I also think it's good to be cautious because this is consolidating at these lows. It could be a bear flag. And I'm not the best at really, whether it's volume analysis or grasping whether it's bearish or bullish. But I do think that, higher lows here, a good amount of wicks, not closing lower, wicks to the downsides, not closing lower. I think that looks good. It does look like the MACD has flipped green here, so I think that's looking good. The RSI is around 42, so it could be lower, and maybe that's what we're looking for, a flush in the price down to maybe test this downtrend, maybe wicking down to 148 or around there and then closing back above. Maybe that's a signal we'd be looking for. But yeah, we just see as price was coming down here, volume wasn't too crazy. It did spike up when it went up here. But yeah, it's just been kind of, flat volume and then this consolidation. So yeah, I would keep an eye out for a close below 150. And then I would think that would be more of a bearish confirmation, but also it could be a fake out. I don't really grasp the confirmation signal Gareth Soloway talks about because you can oftentimes be faked out. But really, it's just like it becomes more likely that it's going lower if it does close below 150. We haven't seen that yet, so I think it's looking not so bad for the downside. As far as the upside, we got this big wick up here, and that high on the 25th of November was 170, so it'd be good to start seeing some moves above 170. Haven't seen that yet. So yeah, hopefully that was helpful. And plug and ChargePoint, I'll come back to those because Mr. Bagel had some other requests, so I'll circle back to that, Benjamin. But first, I'm going to go over XTIA. So this is one that I was kind of looking at throughout the week, just kind of seeing, I drew this downtrend. Is it going to break out from that? Because on Monday, it looked like, it was opening above on the 2nd. That was Monday. Yeah, it was, opening above here, but then it closed lower, and then it's really just consolidated here, faded down, It is still respecting this uptrend based on the two lows, the low from November 6th as well as the low from the 18th. So from that, get this trend line, we haven't had any closes below it. We have had some price action, a little bit of dips below it, and we saw that a little bit on Friday. But we haven't seen any closes below. But, with this trend line, it's like it's being tested multiple times. This, is almost a test right here on the third, hit a low of 4.3 cents. It's just getting tested over and over, and you just think about it like, I've got a ball, and I'm just bouncing it on the floor, and it bounces, and then it goes a little bit lower, goes a little bit lower, and then eventually the ball stops bouncing, and it starts to go down the stairs. So I think, for me, my risk tolerance, my risk threshold, whatever, this is just not worth it. I feel like for me personally, I've been having more success looking at charts that not only look good from a technical standpoint, but also that have options data that I can look into that just gives like another layer, really multiple layers of information that can inform on it. And XTIA doesn't have any options. So, yeah, I think that this one's just a total gamble. And given that they're a company that makes, aerospace whatever planes, whatever those things are called, I always forget. Aerospace, yeah, they say XTIA Aerospace, given that their market cap is now it's closer to 9 million. Last week it was closer to 10 million. That's just not enough to be making things that fly people around. So, yeah, this just seems way too risky. And if you want to gamble. I'm not interested in gambling. I'm interested in reading charts and making bets that I think will, go with and are supported by data. And this just seems like it's not worth it. But, if you want to gamble, maybe it'll come up to, I have this alert at 10 cents. If it goes above 10 cents, I'll be alerted. But I'm not going to buy it. It's just not worth it. But at least for me. And so Mr. Bagel saying Mesa. So I don't know that one. Mesa Air Group, I'll pull them up. And then VTOL, looked at them last week. And Mesa is an interesting VTOL. Oh, so you don't want me to look at VTOL. I can throw it up there. That comes up. Is interesting VTOL type stock. Also, they have a huge $500 million order in Archer once they get cleared by FAA. Cool. And also, I think that companies like this will really benefit from the new administration because of the Department of Government Efficiency, because of the FAA has held back SpaceX from launching. And so it should not be, Elon has said this, that it should not be more difficult to move, papers from one desk to another than to build a rocket. The saying is, well, it's not rocket science. But apparently the bureaucracy, administration, all of that stuff is, more difficult than rocket science. And this stuff, aerospace here, the VTOL companies, that I think that they're going to have a lot more clear guidance in how to get things moving. So I think that could be really good for them. And let's see. Nameless is saying the last earnings were great. Hey, Horatio, what's up? And I should, I will add a couple more here before I close this. Plug and ChargePoint. And so I did go over Plug and ChargePoint a little bit in the options video. And so if you want a little bit more analysis from me, and maybe I give a different perspective that's more talking about the options and stuff, but I do go over the charts a little bit. And there are timestamps to it. So, you can skip to them, and it's probably just 2 to 5 minute spent on each stock, more or less. So I'd recommend checking those out just in case. And Saul, what's up? I will add Porch as well. Oh, Porsche, cool. Let's see, at 216. And so I'm just going to get back up to the top here and looking at Mesa. So yeah, so this looks like a good chart to me. And like it's nice because a lot of these are really building on top of each other. Basically forming bottoms. So I think like what's I think is common, and just it's an easy thing to grasp. We've got this low here of 85.1 cents. You want to be putting higher lows in. But when you get that low end, it starts to consolidate here, and people say, oh, it's going to break higher or whatever. It's going to go, that they might set a stop loss at that low at 85.1 cents. Then this takes out that low, and then it moves higher. And so basically anybody who had a stop loss here, they're forced out of their positions. And then, larger firms, I think that you think about this, like cryptos kind of helped me in grasping this. Whales drive the price lower to liquidate anybody who's over leveraged, who has a stop loss down here, whatever. They are forced out of their positions, and those whales buy back when it's at this dip, even though it didn't really dip a lot lower. This was the low of 85.1. Here's the low of 83.9. It's like get discount there. Start to see the volume spike up a little bit as it's going higher. And I've talked about rising three methods. This is not exactly that, but it does remind me of it, where you have a big green move to the upside, followed by some consolidation inside bars, and then you get moves higher. And so this is similar to that. It's not the exact same, but following this upside move, it makes me think that this is a bull flag. And also, too, we've got this consolidation here, trading above that. So, let's see, just right around there, trading above that. So I think that looks good. That's around 95 cents. Great support there. And, pull back and, pushing up with some volume, coming down a little bit with some volume. So, yeah, let's see. Maybe a trend line that we could draw here. Like maybe this is some resistance that we need to get above. And yeah, so it's possible this could be breaking to the upside or the downside, but I think this looks really good. And maybe, it could be pulling back to around $1 or 95 cents, the 10-cent drop from current price. But, there's some levels there to evaluate, but I think this looks good. Market cap here is 43 million, trading at, right around $1 a share. I think that this looks like, for me personally, I would have viewed this as bear flag. It doesn't look good, but it looks like that's been negated. And also we see the RSI go up here, hit a high on the 27th of 70.08. So just barely getting into that overbought territory, cools off a little bit. And I think that, I don't know if I can draw down here, but over the RSI, but, basically we just see, the lows in the RSI, it starts to consolidate, move higher, pulls back a little bit to get some energy to go up, get rejected at 70, then pulls back to then break out above 70 to be in the overbought territory. If I said oversold before, I meant overbought. So I think that matches with what's going on in the chart, that this could be, a bull flag. Also, we see the MACD. It looks like, it's just been, oscillating from negative here to slightly green, pulling back, staying green in that little valley, and then going even more green, and then it's pulling back some, but still staying green. And so I think that this could be going higher. Doing Fibonacci retracements, or extensions, I should say, on this smaller scale, shorter time frame. I don't know how valid they are, but just drawing it from like this low here at 83.9 cents, going up to the high here at 115, and then pulling back to this low, that could give us some levels to the upside where this might be going to. And so we can see all of those there. And so usually, like a measured move, as far as I understand, we can actually test that here. From this low up to the top here, that measurement is a 100% extension. And so that would be up to here. And so let's just actually test that out. So from this low going up to that high, and then I can move that from the low, and that matches just right. So yeah, it's another way to draw, that kind of measured move with this Fibonacci extension. And so, yeah, this could definitely very possibly be heading up to around $1.30. And with that, I do think, though, that it might bump into, yeah, actually, you see where the cursor is? That gets into the bottoms over here, so it might be getting into some resistance there. And then if it does, I think it could be pulling back to around, or wait, no, sorry. 130 is here. I think that would actually be breaking above what would be some resistance. And so the resistance that stands out to me would be the lows over here. We have all this consolidation that's going to be tough to break above. We already got rejected from it. So it's just pulling back, winding up before it makes another attempt to break above that level to get to the 100% extension at 130. But if it gets there, there isn't a ton. If I throw up, let's see, the volume profile, once we get up to the 100% level at 130, there's not that much volume above it, and we don't see that volume start to pick up until around the 1618. So yeah, the 1618 is the extension there, going beyond 100. That's right around 150, and that corresponds with, the bottoms over here, going to be tough to get above that consolidation. And this dashed line, let's see, I'm just going to look up the settings. We can learn this together. What does this show? This shows the so the point of control, I believe that's what it is down here. The volume average low is down here. The volume average high is around 144, corresponding nicely with that 1618, as well as the consolidation here, the base of that. So yeah, I think that this could potentially be getting a 50% move to the upside, going from around $1 to $1.50, but then maybe pulling back and settling around 130. So that's what I would think would happen. But as always, I could be wrong. So take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, because this did look bearish here, but it seems like it's negated that. So I think this looks really good. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful. And yeah, so I've got Porch. If you don't mind, how about Hycroft? Horatio, yeah, I'll definitely go over Hycroft. I'm just going to try to go over these in order, so it might take me a minute to get to that one. But I did go over Hycroft a little bit in the options video. There's a timestamp to it. I probably spend at most 5 minutes going over it, the chart as well as the data. Oh yeah. That's actually an easy one for me to go over. So maybe I'll just go over it real quick for you right now. Sorry, guys, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. But I think it's just a very clean chart, so easy to go over. I had talked about basically, this purple line looking like an inverse head and shoulders. We got rejected from it. It was negated. That did not happen. Pulled back, and we formed this uptrend based on the low from the 11th of September and the low of the 11th of November. And so from that, we're connecting it. We're pulling back to that level. And so I think that we're very, very close to the bottom. I am a little bit in the red on some calls that I had with Hycroft. I don't have a share position anymore, just because I've been trying to focus more on options and trying to limit my number of positions that I hold each week. And so, I was debating, well, I think this could be going lower and breaking down, but I think it's going to be coming into this level, and I think it might find support there, not only because this level has only been visited, twice to form that line. So I think that it's likely to get a bounce here. Also, if I do a Fibonacci retracement from the low of the 11th of September up to the high that we hit on October 22nd, that retracement, we have a 786 at 216. We're just above that now, and that converges with this uptrend. So I think it's pretty likely to bounce from there. How high is it going to go? I am not sure, but I think that just looks like a really, really nice setup. And, one of the, I learned maybe a hard lesson from it. I'm just going to pull it up real quick. Unity software. Chart's a little bit cluttered, but I was wondering, I had a call here and I took profits too early. I had just lost conviction in it because I think I had started accumulating over here and then it pulled back. I lost conviction. Colin Gladman in the video that I just shared on the channel that he just posted tonight, he is gone long Unity at an average price of 20. And I was looking at the chart and thinking this is the dip because not only is it coming back to this trend line, this level, but if I look at this Fibonacci retracement here, that's the golden pocket, the 618 to the 65% retracement, that convergence there, it bounced beautifully from that. And so I could see something similar happening with Hycroft with these convergence of levels. But then again, if it does continue lower, if it breaks lower, the low from November 11th was $2.10. So I would not want to see it going lower than that because then that kind of negates this pattern or this, trend line, these levels of support. But yeah, I am, I think in the options video, I mentioned the levels that I'll add, and I just do one contract at a time. So not very aggressive with my options. I'm trying to play it safe. But I think I mentioned in the video from last night, considering adding an additional, and actually, I could pull it up because I have the chart here or the spreadsheet that I go over in that video. So for Hycroft, yeah, I was debating buying another call at 40 cents, which would be in yellow. I changed it to green. I do have two orders placed, one at 35, one at 40. And so that one at 40 will probably get filled at open because that's what it traded at on Friday. But yeah, we see open interest. There was a little bit of a pullback here, but generally the trend is up. And so I think that's good. The premium traded on it is just pretty low. So I think this is a fairly speculative play as far as looking into the options data and stuff. But just looking at the chart here, I think it looks really nice. And, we see this doji here with a big wick to the top side and downside. It opened and closed at 222. So that kind of suggests, indecision, whether that's bottoms in or just the bleed that we've seen the past few weeks. Maybe that's ending. And also that followed, this spinning top here, which also suggests indecision. So yeah, I think that this chart's looking really good. I'm excited about it. So yeah, glad to skip ahead. And Nick, I will go over, as you see, I see AMV and AMC. I will go over AMC in a second, but I am skipping people because I just went over Hycroft. So I'm going to go back to, what people were requesting. And so Benjamin was asking for plug and ChargePoint. I did go over those in the options video, so I'll just go over them briefly here. ChargePoint, I was disappointed with the close below $1.50, but as far as I recall, max pain for Friday was $1, so it did close above max pain. So for me, my thesis effectively is that, I'm just going to remove my drawings for a second. It's not a good look. This is a bearish engulfing candle on a Friday. So that's not a good look there, but we did gap up, volume behind that move. And, we're still holding that gap. And so filling that gap, Colin Gladman also talked about that, not on ChargePoint, I think on AMC, talked about it in the video that I shared to the channel. I definitely recommend checking out his video. I think he's a great trader, and I think that he's a no BS trader. And so maybe he can be a little harsh sometimes, but I think that, that's how you got to be sometimes. But anyways, there's this gap here. He talks about this regarding AMC. Different here, ChargePoint, of course, but a gap up. Good to see that gap hold, that is showing strength, that there is still momentum here. And, if that gap does get filled, no big deal. But so for me, I think I had mentioned this, that, I had this line drawn here at 108. I have shares. I also have a call now. I hope to accumulate more of this contract. Expires, I think, in May, so I've got plenty of time on it. But, I had previously, before earnings, because earnings was on, last week on the 4th, I was thinking, well, I mean, if it comes back to 108, if it comes to $1, then, I'd start adding more aggressively. But now my view is kind of that maybe there were people, maybe there was a bunch of retail. It was like, oh, it wicked down to 105. I'm just going to wait for $1, because once it comes to $1, there will be a lot of buyers and that will be the bottom. I'm just going to wait for that whole dollar number, no change involved. I'm just going to wait for it. But then we get a big wick down to 105. We start to see this gap up, a test of 150, a rejection from this uptrend that I have drawn here based on these two lows over here. So it's not surprising that it got rejected from there. It is holding above these highs. You can think of this as like a bull flag. It gapped up and then it might be testing this consolidation, the top of it, as support. And so my view is that if it pulls back to $1.25 right around this yellow line, that is a dip buy level. I, of course, I've got a big enough position. I don't need to be aggressive with my buys anymore. And so I would add a little bit at 125. If it goes lower, I'd add a little more. If it doesn't, I'd be happy I took advantage of the dip, but I wouldn't be going crazy over it. And the thing that we kind of don't want to see is a fill of this gap. And so, because that suggests that the momentum is lost, that push to the upside, it's fading, and so that gap gets filled. And so this gap from the 4th, from earnings, the close was at 122. So a dip to 125, that gap would still be open, not filled, testing this as support here. And so I mean, I think that ChargePoint's looking really good. But it could also fade. I mean, this, like I said, bearish engulfing candle there, so good to be cautious of it. But yeah, and I think that this, and kind of relating that to the blink chart, maybe this is a bear flag, but it's holding above 153, putting in higher lows. So I think there might be some things that make people think, oh, this gap's going to get filled. It didn't come to $1, and it's going to before it turns around. I think at some point, stocks, sometimes they sweep the lows to push people out and then they go higher. Other times they don't get to the level so that people recognize when it's trading at, 150, 160 or, 250 up here. Then they recognize, hey, $1 is not going to get filled. I got left behind, but I want to be in ChargePoint. Maybe their average is much higher than 250. They were hoping to really get it down at $1. It doesn't go to $1, and then they say, oh, well, screw it. It's breaking out, around 250. Then they, FOMO in up here to get their average down still, but then it pulls back. And then it tests this line, 169 or 150. As support before then continuing higher. So it's just about playing games with people, about people wanting to get in. I'll just place an order at $1. It's a whole number. It's even. It's an odd whole number, but it's a whole number. And just waiting for that to get filled, and then they get left behind, then they FOMO in. And when they FOMO in up here, they then become the bag holders for anybody who is trimming because they recognized there was resistance here. So that's kind of the way that I see this playing out. But it's, of course, not going to be a straight line. There are going to be some zigs and some zags on the way there, and we're seeing that now getting rejected from this red line. So yeah, I'd look for this to be holding above 125 for ChargePoint. For Plug, yeah, I was thinking about just doing a quick video on it. Basically, what I'd like to see is this hold up here, like, forming a bull flag, and then it break higher. And so at this price, I don't have a huge position in Plug, but I have a larger position than I was initially intending, just because I think, this is one of the more speculative ones trading, basically below $5. The options aren't as exciting. There's just less data there, and there's less money behind it. And so for me, I'm thinking that, I'm slightly in the green now. And so I was thinking, well, what I might do, still holding the majority of my position, I might trim out a little bit just so I have some extra cash on the side. But if over the course of like the next couple weeks, it's consolidating here, boring retail, all of this stuff, I'd probably buy back those shares, load up on calls. I've been accumulating. I think it might be a June expiration, might be May. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, I mean, if it's holding up here, forming a flag like this, then yeah, I think we're going to 3. I think that we could be going much higher than 3 if that's the case. But yeah, I mean, and just like with it being up here, a couple of big wicks to the top side, maybe this is a double top here, so that's another concern. So for me personally, I'm just thinking, well, I might want to de-risk a little bit while still holding, just trimming, and then seeing how this handles. If it forms a flag, especially because we've got this line here at 242. That was the high hit on October 22nd. If it's consolidating above that, maybe wicks below a little bit, maybe get some closes below, but generally above that level, I think it's a bull flag, and I think that we're starting to see it get higher. So I think that similar sentiment with, Plug, with ChargePoint. Charts kind of look similar in that sense, and so I'm feeling good about both of them. Blink looks a little bit different. But I think that, the signs could be suggesting that this is in fact not a bear flag, that this is, forming higher lows. So I think it's looking good. And, yeah, now I've got, Porch, is the next one on there. Yeah, no, Horatio, no problem. Oh, no, I imagine most people are here to just kind of hang out and see what's going on. And yeah, and on the note of just hanging out and stuff, cheers to all of you guys. If I didn't cheers you before, if you joined a little bit late. And so Ben saying EV stocks such as Blink, Plug, and Charge. So Plug is hydrogen fuel cells and stuff. So it's a little bit different than EVs, but it's renewable energy. And ChargePoint, which I always thought, I always thought that Plug was like EV charging, but it's hydrogen fuel cells, which I think is Elon Musk would probably say not so great things about hydrogen, but that's just because he's not in that sector of renewable energy. Whether something's the best or not, it doesn't matter. What we need to be doing to be building a secure, energy future for us, whether that's the U.S. or around the world, is we need to be diversifying. Because if we're only relying on something like oil or gas, whether we get that domestically or we buy that from other countries, that creates some vulnerability. Because maybe we have some trouble transporting that fuel, or maybe a tanker spills, or something like that. So we want to be diversifying. Solar, maybe it's a cloudier summer, or forest fires prevent that solar radiation from getting to those solar cells. Windy. Can also gusty winds can also have an effect on wind energy, and that can also relate to fire. So we don't want to just have one type of energy. We want to really be diversifying, and that's going to vary region by region. And, Plug Power, my understanding is they got, deals with Walmart, other, bigger companies and stuff. So I think that they're going to be a part of the energy diversification solution, the pathway moving forward. So I feel good about that. And all seem to have price action that mirror each other. Yeah, and I agree. I think that they all seem to me like there are bullish things hidden in what looks like what could be bearish. And so looking at this, for me, months ago, I'd probably be like, well, this looks like a bear flag. But then seeing these higher lows and it reclaiming, or, not even really breaking below 153, not getting lower than 150 as far as closes, no closes below 150, that suggests to me that this is more likely to be a bottoming signal. And also Santa Claus rally, I think these things are going to be moving. And very interesting, Colin Glam, I'm going to pull this up just here. IWM, I don't follow it, but this is the, I'm just going to read the profile from the IWM. Where is, I just hit enter, but it didn't pop up. IWM, I'm just going to, that's why. I meant to add it to the request list. So IWM, that's why. So I'm just going to add this here just to read the profile, but he was talking about how, the SPY, had previously been very bullish, moving very aggressively to the upside, but the NASDAQ was lagging a little bit. And then over the past week, as far as I understand, because I don't follow them too closely, but from what he's talking about, what he's showing in the charts, the NASDAQ was a better performer last week. So it's kind of like money was rotated from the SPY to the NASDAQ and the IWM. I haven't looked at this at all. He went over this in his video, but he was talking about, just to kind of share what he had drawn up. Basically, let's see, I could draw it like that and like that. That looks like a bull flag. And so it's like money's rotating from SPY to the NASDAQ, from the NASDAQ to the IWM. And so this could be moving a lot higher. And my understanding is this is smaller. Let's see. The investment seeks to track the investment results of the Russell 2000 Index, which measures the performance of the small capitalization sector of the U.S. equities market. So that makes me think that smaller companies or less well-established companies like ChargePoint, like Plug, like BLNK, could be seeing some upside. So I think that it all lines up. It makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I think that we could be seeing the IWM maybe closing next week above this. I don't know if that's the all-time high. The 52-week high was, let's see, 52-week high. Yeah, 244.98 where I got that line drawn. So I think it's possible we could see price going up there. Although, one thing, I've talked about this before in videos, but I don't think it's necessarily that significant. We see higher highs in the price here. Looking at the RSI corresponding with those highs, we see lower highs. So that's bearish divergence. But I think, in drawing this, what do we see? What I see is perhaps a cup, and this bull flag is a handle. And so that could be taken off. And so there's another way to look at that. That's a bullish pattern. And from looking at this, we can do, I had just previously done it, but just kind of like, building up on this, rather than doing Fibonacci retracements, we can do an extension going from the low here to the high here, and then to whatever this low is going to be. So it may continue to go lower, but from this Fibonacci extension, we see that the 100%, which would be a measured move, which I can show you by taking the measurement from the low to the high there, and then I move that from the low over here. It matches up perfectly with a 100%. So that's what that means. That would be meaning that this could be getting to 256, which would be, kind of an overextension. And following that, I would expect a pullback. But yeah, I mean, I think that this looks good, and I think that could be reflected in our favorite stocks like ChargePoint, Plug, and Blink, and whatnot, AMC, GameStop, whatnot. And so this is funny. So I'm just going to read Benjamin's comment and Nameless's comments, making me laugh. Benjamin is saying the fundamentals of TMC, the metals company. Nameless will like that. He's always requesting TMC, so I'll throw it up here. It's deep sea mining of metals, which I think that there are a number of kind of environmental, not necessarily environmental, but more like ecosystem related issues with that, just because there are, delicate little ecosystems. Organisms are going to live around the little, metal nodules, or I believe they're not nodules. They're just basically little, I never studied them, but I've learned about them. I used to study the ocean, the chemistry of the ocean, the water. So not the metals at the seafloor, but that stuff in the water itself. But yeah, these little metals there are going to be all of these little organisms, whether it's various microorganisms, could be like little crabs, or could be bacteria, stuff like that, which maybe doesn't seem that important, but there are these very interesting little ecosystems there. And so a company like the metals company is potentially disrupting that. But, investing in something like that or trading something like that, it's all, I feel like it's, you can be maybe ethically opposed to something, but that doesn't stop, what's happening. And so if the chart says it's bullish, then it's bullish. So I wouldn't think too much about that stuff. But I just think that's an interesting aspect of it. And for me personally, I'm probably not interested in that company, probably for those reasons. But I'll look at the chart in a minute. But I'm just going to read Nameless's comment. Andy is a smart guy, high IQ. Yes, he went to college for the ocean science. How many years did you do oceanography? So I got a bachelor's degree in chemistry, and I had 2 minors because I was initially starting as a geology major, but I oddly didn't want to do the field work required for it. So that was required for getting dual major. So I got a minor in geology, and then also a minor in atmospheric and oceanic science. And then I actually have a PhD. So I have a PhD in marine and atmospheric chemistry. And so I spent, I believe, so I took a semester, 2 courses at a community college before I started at the university. And so for me, if I exclude those 2 courses, because that was really just so I could get into the university, I spent 5 years in college, and then I spent 5 years in the PhD program, and then I worked at universities for 3 years following getting the PhD. Pandemic made me realize I didn't want to keep going down that career path for a number of reasons. Let's see. What is the coolest thing you saw in the ocean? So I actually didn't do too much work in the ocean because I'd go out and I'll prepare some slides probably around Christmas. I meant to do it around Thanksgiving, but it's sometimes it can be a struggle with motivation. I think I was putting out too many videos, and it was just draining me, trying to work at home, be productive, and the weather changing, dragging me down. But yeah, so I plan on doing like a little slideshow presentation, just going over some of the stuff that I've done. But so I didn't spend any time in the water. I'm not certified to dive or anything like that, but I go out on ships and sample the ocean by deploying instruments over the side, collect seawater, and then take those seawater samples to the lab to test them. And I've spent over 300 days at sea, but not an entire year. I haven't, the total days have not added up to a year. But probably the coolest thing that I've seen, so I've seen the aurora out at sea. That was pretty mesmerizing. Like I feel like kind of an emotional experience, spiritual, however you want to describe that. So I'll probably tell a story like about that in the video with some pictures. I've seen polar bears. I've done some work in the Arctic. I've been to the North Pole. So that going to the North Pole was, I've actually, like by the point of, 90.00 degrees north, I've been there once, but getting into the vicinity of the North Pole, I was about 5 miles away a second time. So kind of odd. I've also been to Antarctica. And so for me, the things like related to those two experiences, kind of the grasping of how in the Arctic, when you look out on the ship and you just see nothing but sea ice, it's all white, it's an ocean, but you just see snow everywhere, snow and ice. And then just realizing that, no matter where you look, there's probably a polar bear and you just can't see it. Because we, spot them every once in a while and just, they'd be like, they blend in, they're very stealthy. So kind of recognizing that was like I don't know, kind of a scary moment, just recognizing the fear or the isolation, I guess, of if I was to be walking around on the ice, on the ocean, by myself away from the ship, there could be a bear hiding just around the corner. And so that was kind of a scary thing. The North Pole, I'll tell a story about that in the video. And just seeing penguins, that's a incredible experience. And we actually, when I was down there, I was doing the chemistry of the water, but there was a group of scientists who were biologists. They were studying the penguins, and I got to help them put tags on them, little satellite trackers on them. And so I got to interact with some emperor penguins. So that was really cool. So I've had a lot of like cool experiences. I'm very lucky, but I'm like not doing that stuff anymore, which I'm kind of bummed about. So I feel like over the past year, plus a year and a half, 2 years maybe, probably like more than that, probably 4 years, I've been kind of struggling with having devoted so much time to that education, not doing that anymore, not planning to go back to do it, and just kind of like struggling to know what my purpose is, I guess. And so I found a lot of value with this channel, so I'm very thankful for it. But at the same time, I'm thankful for those experiences that I've had. And I'm also thankful that I am not pursuing a career in academia or universities because I feel like there's just not that much job security. And I think that there's a lot of idealistic thought that's just not realistic. And I just don't think it's good. So I'm happy to be away from that circle and just thinking about, thinking about stocks, thinking about the possibility of the future. I think it's just a brighter way, a better way to look at things. And so, so hopefully I answered that question. And I might actually, before let's see, the metals company, I think that I'm, okay, so Nick, life's been good. Hopefully my little tangent, sorry, Nick, I missed your comment there. I can go over AMC real quick, and I will pull up TMC as well. But yeah, I'll just get AMC up here. I definitely recommend checking out Colin Gladman's video, though. He doesn't spend too much time on AMC. It's not really an afterthought for him anymore. He if it's just, I think kind of his sentiment is it's just been trading in this range. It's boring, but now it's starting to break out. And so he is vocal about not being an AMC, and he's vocal about selling when he sells. And he's also vocal about buying when he buys. And he recently started establishing a position. So I think that's a good, message from him, a good signal. Roaring Kitty, the meme stocks and stuff. I think that we're just going to be seeing a lot of good stuff moving forward. But I'll look over this. I'm just going to catch up in the comments since I was going on some tangents there. And so TMC is the metals company, a deep sea minerals exploration company, focuses on collection, processing, and refining of polymetallic nodules, found on the seafloor in California. And so it primarily explores for nickel, cobalt, copper, and manganese products. The company holds exploration and commercial rights in 3 polymetallic nodule contract areas in the Clarion Clipperton zone of the Pacific Ocean. Its products are used in electric vehicles. You copy and pasted this from somewhere. Renewable, because I see the parentheses EVs. I know it. Renewable energy storage markets, EVs, and wiring, energy transmission, manganese alloy production required for steel production, and other applications. The company was formerly known as Sustainable Opportunities Acquisition Corporation and changed its name to TMC. The metals company, TMC Metals Company, was founded in 2011 and is based in Vancouver, Canada. I used to live in Vancouver, one of the things, this is a conversation I was recently talking with somebody about this, I believe at work over the weekend. I was chatting with somebody who I worked with in academia doing ocean research, and you can kind of gather, where the which side of the aisle that group of people leans on or leans in the direction. And I would say I was similar to that in the past, but I think I've changed. I'm probably more of a middle of the ground person right now. But with being very excited for the future. And so not to get into a tangent of any of that stuff, but let's see. Chatting with this person I believe before the pandemic in Vancouver, we both 2 PhDs in academia studying the ocean, being very interested in the environment. And I was just going on about Elon Musk, whether it's related to SpaceX or Tesla, just being excited. And this person's response was, yeah, well, EVs are great, but I think this person just bought a gas car, a new gas car, or not a new gas car, but, past few years, not too old of a car, a new car for me. I'm a rust bucket kind of guy. And they were talking about how, it's an investment buying a vehicle, but, it's going to take us a while to really adopt EVs because of, charging stations. There aren't enough of them. And also, mining lithium is bad. And so that just makes me think, well, if there's this person that's, very in tune with, climate science, the environment, all of these things, and that side of the aisle, is very for renewable energy. But there's this term that I want to use coming up. I'm not gonna know what it is. Very interesting. I think it's from Nietzsche, which philosopher. I'm not too familiar with a lot of his stuff, but anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. But this person was saying, basically making the argument against EVs, against the pathway to renewable energy, I should say, because if you have an EV and you're charging it based on power that's coming from natural gas, that's not renewable energy. But if you have something that is based on plugging it in, you could plug it into wind or solar or, a variety of energy sources. Whereas if you have a car that runs on gasoline, you can only run that car on gasoline. You can only run it on fossil fuels. So there's no diversification pathway. There's no pathway towards renewable with just buying a gas car. So I found that to be very, very odd. And it's, this quote, Nietzsche, I think it was from the Anderson, I forget his name, Eric Anderson, interview from a Joe Rogan podcast. And he was talking about how, it's like basically if you're very much in line with renewable energy, which means you're kind of like anti-fossil fuels, but then something comes around, like an Elon Musk, a billionaire who's very successful, resentment. That's what I think it is. Because you have this sentiment that is for renewable energy, but you then start to resent the person or the industry that is then leaning to, because maybe Jeff Bezos is also into this or something, and they start to see, oh, wow, I think this is actually around the election, how like Elon, Joe Rogan, a lot of people, RFK, were Democrats, switched to be Republican, because the Democrats have just kind of gone down this path. Or, those who are very into renewable energy have gone down this path of, oh, well, I don't agree with that person, so I'm actually going to flip my view, and I would rather get a gas vehicle and continue to put money in the oil industry than invest in renewables or a pathway to renewables, that diversification pathway. And so I just find that to be really interesting. And so this tangent is all really coming back to the metals company. And that, I talk about that there's some, environmental or ecosystem concerns with that industry of, mining the bottom of the ocean, because you could be disrupting a lot of this, very fragile, delicate ecosystem. And also, to further the tangent, something that's talked about, you can look up extremophiles. These are organisms that love, that's file or file, they love these extreme environments. And in the ocean around vents, hydrothermal vents, you would get all of these organisms that are adapted to these extreme environments that are very hot. Water is boiling at the bottom of the ocean around these vents, and that's where these organisms have adapted to, and they're referred to as extremophiles, which I find to be ridiculous because it's not an extreme environment to them. To them, it's a stable environment. And so, an extreme is going from, swings in temperature, big swings in temperature. If it's the winter and, you got oscillations of the jet stream, the polar vortex, big swings in temperature, and that is going to, be extreme. And so these extremophiles that live by vents, they don't experience anything extreme. It's actually very stable there, in my view. That's kind of counter to the understanding, because extreme is high temperature, not relating to how stable it is. And so these organisms, any of these organisms that live around these nodules, these metal nodules, that environment is very stable. It doesn't change much. And so disrupting that by mining these materials, could, have a very high environmental cost or an ecosystem cost to these fragile environments. So I think that's a little bit of a concern with the metals company. But coming back full circle, sorry, this is a big circle, but it's all about diversification. And if we're having issues with mining lithium from mountains, maybe we should take some of that and maybe mine from the ocean, or maybe mine from asteroids. And I think that that's something that's going to be happening. I think that what we're seeing in the next 10 years, things are going to change a lot. And so I don't think it's necessarily about doing one thing is bad in one area. I think then it's like, okay, well, maybe we shouldn't focus on that. Maybe we should diversify and not only mine from mountains or mine from different continents, also the ocean, and also look to space as well for that. And so, I think that the metals company is perhaps a valid diversification strategy for getting those minerals that are needed for powering the renewable energy or renewable diversification trajectory that we have to go on. And I think that, anyways, I think that there are interesting aspects to it. And so, Vaz, sorry, Sorry to slow you down, and yeah, because you're heading to bed. Somehow still awake, 3 a.m. Thanks for all that. Yeah, no problem. And yeah, and thanks for the super. I appreciate that. It's always nice to get that, and I do not expect it. You know, I always just do this for fun, but I do appreciate it. And so let's see. I'm just gonna scroll back up to see. Okay, so Benjamin was talking about all this stuff. Horatio saying I'm an interesting dude. I've been fortunate. I've had great opportunities in my life, and I've learned how to navigate things. And yeah, so now trying to navigate YouTube, but really I think more so just trying to navigate the charts and stuff. But this is a massive tangent, and I should get back to the charts, look at the metals company and AMC. And so before I continue on, yeah, Horatio's seen the videos of events. It's super cool stuff. And they're all over the world, and they're still being discovered because, like, you know, looking out into space, we can see very well. They're just sound doesn't travel in space. The ocean's the exact opposite. We can't see very well, but sound goes well. That's why dolphins and whales communicate in such acoustic ways. And they're singing and stuff. But that just makes it very hard for us as visual beings to really understand and explore the ocean. And actually, if you think about the ocean, we envision it as very deep. And I was actually talking about this in relation to Starlink and how if you have the surface of the Earth and you need to connect to a cell phone tower or a Wi-Fi hub, that might be going from this location all the way, you know, over to here. But going up to a satellite, Starlink satellite, that's just going up about this high. So the distance is not very far. So we envision things as being much deeper or much bigger. Like the atmosphere is much thinner than we perceive it to be. There's a little ladybug that I gave it a violent flick. Hopefully I killed it because I don't want it in my place. But yet we perceive these things to be much thicker than they are. And so the atmosphere is very thin compared to the vastness of the Earth. Same thing with the ocean, the vastness of the ocean. And you could think of the ocean as basically being like a piece of paper. It is as wide as the length of that piece of paper, and it as deep as that piece of paper is thick. And still, we haven't mapped a lot of the ocean. We don't understand a lot of the various aspects of the seafloor. And so there are tons of things for us to be discovering, whether it's hydrothermal vents, there are also cold seeps, various things in different organisms live around these. And I'm sure that there are tons of organisms that we have not discovered, different environments in the ocean that we have not discovered yet. It's just not only like you go out from the Earth to space, what are you dealing with as far as pressure goes? On Earth, you have 1 atmosphere of pressure, and then in space, you have 0 atmospheres of pressure. So that's a difference of 1 atmosphere. In the ocean, I believe every 10 meters you go down, so about 33 feet. Every 10 meters, that is a change of 1 atmosphere. And so if you're going down hundreds of feet into the ocean, you're dealing with multiples of pressure change that you would experience in going into space. So that's just another aspect of why the ocean is so hard to explore. Very important for us to understand, you know, how the system works here, but it's also very important for us to go out and explore, because from that, it pushes our boundaries to have to innovate. And then we can take those innovations and apply them here on Earth, whether that's space technologies, applying it to the ocean, or energy, whatever it is, definitely benefits us here. So space is very important, but tons of tangents here. Cool. Glad you're enjoying the show, Vaz. It was found that whales make a sound that mimic the frequency of Van Allen belt. I don't know Van Allen belt. So let's see. What is the Van? It was found that whales make. So actually, I may not get too into that tangent because I've just been hovering on this AMC chart. So I should look into this in TMC, and then maybe we can explore some other stuff. But with AMC, what Colin was talking about, and I'll just kind of like echo what he was saying because I learn a lot from him. He's just an excellent person to be learning from. And I should say I learn a lot from him by watching his videos, by following him on X, and just listening to his perspective. I have not paid for his Discord, which if I were to leave my job and focus on trading and YouTube full time, I'd consider joining his, paying to subscribe for his Discord for a month, because I think that would just move my trading up a level. But yeah, what he was talking about is that we have this gap up. And, following, the dilution, not so great. With that dilution, he drew it differently, but I have this line here at 469. We have pulled back and, are respecting that. And so I think what level he might maybe drawing a line from, maybe over here to I'm not sure how he drew it. So you'd want to check out his video. But it's like we gapped up. And then even on this pullback, we're respecting these levels, and that gap has not been filled yet. And so he likes that there is that gap there because it shows that there is bullish momentum, and we want to keep that. We fill that gap, we kind of lose that momentum. And so I feel like big wick to the downside, buyers stepping in, holding it above 469. So I think this looks really good. And I just did the video, which I get into kind of like my understanding of the 8K filing and the shares that they issued. So they issued 50 million shares at a price of 1 cent. So I believe what that means is it cost them $50,000 to issue these shares, these 50 million shares. But if you do the math based on the close on Thursday and the close on Friday, the number of shares that they issued while the stock price came down, the value of AMC, because of issuing those shares, actually went up by about $60 million. I could be wrong on the math. I go over it in that video. And so while as an investor, as a shareholder, I am not happy, I guess you could say, that the stock price came down because I want number to go up. But number didn't come down that much. And we're holding these levels, and AMC secured some more money by having that many more shares at their disposal. And, if they were to, if price were to go up to $5 a share, what they raised, or those shares that they issued, that's an additional $250 million. And if price goes above $5 a share, like I think it will, I've talked about it potentially, going up to this, let's see, bigger picture, going up to 19, right around 20, maybe getting rejected there in all honesty, and then maybe pulling back to around 10 to 12. Then that maybe being the new floor. And so if maybe it goes up to 20 or 18 and AMC decides to raise some capital by selling some shares, then that, would be worth those 50 million shares would then be worth $1 billion at $20 a share. So, yeah, I think that they're positioning themselves well for the future. And I think that they did it while it would have been nice to close the week above $5 a share because that was max pain. I don't think that this necessarily negates what could be a gamma squeeze and just continued bullish momentum. We are putting in higher lows. The trend is moving up rather than down or sideways. So, yeah, I think that AMC is looking good. And, my thesis for AMC is that $8 right around here is a very important level. And I think the reason why I think that is because of this gap here, right around 7 at 685, that I bought calls that are $8 strike. So that's why that level stands out to me for that reason as well. But I think just because of this gap. But like we moved up to around 12 and then pulled back massively. So that's a 786. So let's do a little experiment. I'm just going to adjust this to have 20 up there. Maybe I'll adjust this. Just do a little manual adjustment. And so let's say we do a Fibonacci retracement to kind of mirror this one from the low to the high. What would the 786 retracement be? And so actually this looks more like this would be about a 50% retracement, but let's just do it. Let's just, for fun, do Fibonacci retracement here from the low to around 20. And so the 50% is right around 12, right around that red line. The 618, you can think of this as the golden pocket with the 65% being just below that, approximately, is around 10. Psychological level going from the ones to the tens place. And then the 786 is around 750. And so I think that from this low that we saw, and actually I could do that to the penny. So I'll adjust that to 403, that's still a low there, and then I'll do this to exactly $20 a share here. And so that's what we're looking at. And so I think that we could be seeing a move up to $20 a share, but I don't think that would hold. And so that's not saying that I think you should sell at 20. I think you should do whatever you want to do. But I think if AMC gets a violent move up to 20, I think we'd see a repeat of what we saw when it moved up to 12, but it may not pull back all the way to the 786. And I actually don't think it would, because it's all about psychology. And so if you have, thinking about this psychologically, if we have a big move like this and it pulls back to the 786, what am I going to do? I am then going to, if I am to execute on my thesis, which in all honesty, I'd probably trim some at 20 with the plan of buying those back lower. But I don't think that we would do a retracement to the 786 like we did over here. Why is that? Because it's happened once here. And so what I would do if that was to repeat, I would say, okay, I'm going to load the boat here. And then I'm going to sell all of my shares at 20. Maybe it doesn't get to 20. Maybe it only gets to 18. And then I would buy back once it pulls back to the 786 based on whatever that high is, whatever that 786 is. Let's say it's at 750. But the market likes to play with us. And if it moves up to 18, not 20, you don't get to sell all your shares at 20. And then it pulls back, not to 750, but maybe 10. And why do I think 10 and not 12? Well, because I have kind of drawn this out that I think that, 12 corresponding with the high over here, that could be the new support. Also corresponding with the level over here where that line is based on. Maybe it goes up to 18 and then maybe it starts to pull back to around this level. And then it's like, okay, it's at 12. I'm going to load at 12 because I think that's the new floor right around 1150 here, this red line at 1143. But then it goes lower and then it's like, oh crap, my thesis was wrong. I should have been patient. I should have waited for the 786. It dips down to around 10. People start to go crazy. Oh, we're getting into the single digits. It's coming back to, these lows that we were seeing over here. But nope, it forms a bottom at 10. And then we start to see this process kind of repeat. And then we get to another violent move to the upside. And so, yeah, I like this idea of it potentially going up to maybe, above 1660 where that line is, which is based on this high over here. And then it pulls back from that. And, and then people's averages, who let's say, or those who maybe weren't in AMC at all, so nobody's selling anything. and then they just look at the chart and they see, oh, well, the 50% retracement, which corresponds with this high, is at 12, so I'll load the boat at 12. And then so their average is at 12, and then it goes lower, and they're like, well, crap, I'm not going to add any more until it gets to the 786. That doesn't happen. It rips their face off, and then they FOMO in higher, and process repeats. Anyways, I just think that's an interesting way to think about this. Probably none of that will play out as I had talked about, but I think it's just interesting. It's like game theory, I believe, just thinking about that, market psychology. And so let's see. It was found that whales make a sound that mimic the frequency of Van Allen belt. So I'll just look up the Van Allen belt. And okay, so but I might also check on Vaz's comments. I mean, how many new species were discovered each year just on the surface? Yeah, and I think a big topic on that is like in the Amazon rainforest. And one of the things that is it the president or the prime minister of is it Gambia? I think that it's just like he totally drops the mic on this interviewer who's trying to lecture him on, oh, well, you just, I don't know how we listen to this together. I don't want to distract too much. I can pull it up if you guys are interested once I go over to the metals company. But it's basically like this guy's being interviewed, the president, about how they recently discovered oil. And that's like a huge boom for their economy, that they can be extracting this oil. They can be a player in that sector, just making tons of money for their country. And the interviewer, who I think is British, is well, what are your concerns? That doesn't seem like it's ethically appropriate for you to be drilling for oil because it's bad for the environment. And then the president's just like, no, I'm not hearing any of this. You're lecturing me on being reckless with energy. We have the second largest or one of the largest rainforests on the planet that sucks all of the CO2 out of the atmosphere that you emit. And you're trying to lecture me on being environmentally conscious? No. And it just totally shuts the reporter down. Totally legendary. I think it's happened over the past year. I believe I posted it on the channel, but it might be tough to find. But yeah, what's the tangent I'm going on with that? Let's see. Oh yeah, rainforests, and just that there are so many organisms in those. So it's like, in that sense, we need to be protecting those, and also just there's just so much biodiversity, and whether it's these jungles that are on land or in the ocean. And it's really just like, places that we don't even think to look. I mean, you think about how you're just walking around outside and you see a rock. And it's just a rock. There's nothing going on around it. You pick up that rock, you look on the underside of it. There are worms, there are little crawly things all over it. There's life everywhere. And that might be life that you can see. It might also be life that you can't see, like bacteria and various little organisms. You might think bacteria, that's bad. But think about the bacteria in your gut. There's these organisms everywhere. And really, they just kind of create a symbiosis, kind of like the, Gaia hypothesis that the Earth is this living, breathing organism. It's not all of these disparate organisms living in different areas. We all are, living in unison together, feeding off of the waste of others and whatnot. And, by eating whatever vegetable or whatever animal or whatever, we're returning that to the earth to repeat the process over again, or to transport seeds from one part of a grassland to another, So very interesting the way the world works. By the way, I wasn't too wrong with plug. Yeah, I mean, I think that with plug, though, I had just talked about it, like with what I want to see with it. I was trying to figure out a color to do this. That's light blue. It's not white. But I want to see it start to consolidate here to form a bull flag. It's just the market likes to take its time and to psych people out. And, I was posting about plug over here about, we got the breakout. I think I had like a plug Power Rangers thumbnail. And somebody commented about prior video that I did like 6 months ago about why, like, I have this lineup here at 18. And, they're like, plug just keeps bleeding. There have been so many videos since you mentioned 18. And that depressed me. Because I mean, the market is always changing and you've always got to adapt. And also for me, I'm learning. None of what I talk about is financial advice. I'm just like you guys trying to learn the market. And I just so happened to, I had a channel that focused on not pushing climate change science or anything like that, but just talking about earth science, climate science, understanding how the earth system works. I had a channel that focused on that. It didn't pick up. It didn't have a lot of momentum. And I kind of recognized I'm never going to be able to make a living doing that. It's not going to take me anywhere good. I'm just going to pour a lot of time and energy into it and not get any return on it. But I have set up basically a studio. How am I going to use that studio? I'll just start a trading journal for myself going over stocks. And maybe people like it, maybe they don't. And so it's like, I'm just like you guys. I just happen to have a little setup to do this. And for whatever reason, I like rambling about this stuff. I don't think I'm the most talkative or outspoken person. I think that I tend to, I'm a younger sibling, so I tend to be kind of in the background a lot of times. But this is just, my way to shine, I guess. I don't know. It's just me rambling. But yeah, I can talk people's ears off, no problem, if I get excited about something. And, but yeah, plug, I want to see it consolidating over the next couple weeks. And then I think that's just going to start going higher. And I think that this is all, forming these new lows, bleeding over here, and then spending all of this time consolidating. It's boring people out of their positions. It's getting people to get frustrated and to move somewhere else. And that's when the big money or bigger money steps in, buys up those cheap shares, and then stuff takes off. So I think that this is going to be good. And yeah, thinking about, just coming back to presidency and how that relates to the economy and the market, I think that there's this idea that is perhaps misguided, kind of talking about stories, the exchanges that I've had with a friend about EVs and Tesla and stuff, is that Democrats are pro renewable energy, but Democrats have not really broken up the bureaucracy, the regulations, all this stuff. Of course, some regulations are good. Some of them are needed, especially environmental regulations. But there's this clip and this is coming from the other side of the aisle, the Democratic side of the aisle, about, I imagine you guys don't watch because he's super annoying, but sometimes brings up some pretty good points. Bill Maher's Real Time. Sometimes he brings up some good points. I know he shat on Doge, so I don't like him for that. But he was talking about how in San Francisco, they were trying to get some public toilets installed because of the homeless issue, which is, kind of another big issue. And it was costing them like billion or millions of dollars for a toilet. I think probably millions of dollars for a toilet. And the reason for that is because of all of the permits, the regulations, the, whatever that has to be passed through in order for that to happen. And so, I actually view that the shift to the Republican side is actually going to be much more pro renewable because that's new technologies, that's new infrastructure that needs to be getting through, moving beyond regulations, things that would hold it back, and that the Republican Party is more pro-business. And I think that it will be good for the green economy. And also, I think that there's this, the group that I worked with in Vancouver, they focused, not me, but they focused more on fisheries. And I think they're, very opposed to, the US and Canada drilling for oil because it disrupts their ecosystems. And, that's valid, it does. But at the same time, we're just then going to be getting our oil from the Middle East, a conflict zone, and or a conflict region. And we need to take responsibility for our energy demands. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how eco-friendly you try to be. Everything that we have, arrives to us more or less by fossil fuels transporting things around. And, I think that that's a good thing for us to then take responsibility for our energy demands. And if we have such an environmental issue, or if there are so many environmental issues with that, maybe we should push the innovation so we don't rely on such energy, or maybe we should more seriously consider nuclear, because that is, to me, is crazy that we haven't gotten more into that, and it's just like, whether it's Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island or what was the Japanese reactor that Fukushima. It's these events that happen. The trick is, what do we learn from them? If you make a bad trade, I just exchanged with somebody about us being bullish on Tesla, and I was saying, I've got a very small position. I'm never going to sell it. I bought it on a dip, and I'm never going to sell it. And I'm not making the mistake I made with Palantir, thinking I was selling at resistance. I was wrong. He made the same mistake, and I responded to him, if we learned something, it's not a mistake. And so, Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, Fukushima, did we learn from those mistakes? And if we did, how can we apply that to make nuclear more secure, safer in the future, more environmentally friendly, and just safer all around? And so, I think that, speaking of plug, hydrogen is, an alternative renewable energy source. And so I think that we just need to be going in all these directions. And I think that domestic oil production, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. So we just have to do it safely, appropriately. No Exxon Valdez spill or whatever. The Gulf of Mexico one as well. That was BP, I think. Or maybe it wasn't. I'm not sure. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Or maybe it's, I don't know. Whatever. We gotta be doing that stuff safe. We gotta learn from those mistakes and make things safer, stronger, better for the future. The Van Allen radiation belt. Oh yeah, there's actually some, and you could probably, I remember hearing about this. I have, so there's a lot of that. It's like this resonance, and I believe that was. So I'll just, I'm actually going to use Grok rather than Google, just to see. Do whales communicate on the Van Allen frequency? I'll say frequency. I think that's frequency. And what is it? So let's see what Grok has to say. This is cool. I just became an annual subscriber to Premium. Whales do not communicate on the Van Allen frequency because no such specific frequency related to whale communication exists in scientific literature. The term Van Allen generally refers to the Van Allen radiation belts, which are zones of charged particles trapped by Earth's magnetic field, not directly related to acoustic communication in whales. However, this is so cool. However, whales do communicate using a wide range of frequencies. Toothed whales, or odontoceti, which would be like the baleen, or not the baleen, sorry, that's right here, like the sperm whale that got Pinocchio. So toothed whales, or odontoceti, use high-frequency clicks and whistles for echolocation and communication. These sounds can range from a few hundred hertz to several tens of thousands of hertz. For example, narwhals produce sounds with the 500 to 48,000 hertz range, and beluga whales have a wide vocalization range, earning them the nickname canaries of the sea. Baleen whales, or mysticeti, seti probably means whale, produce low-frequency sounds, typically from 10 hertz to about 1,000 hertz, and these sounds travel thousands of miles underwater, serving purposes like social communication and mating behaviors. And yeah, I was just going to say, I think that's pretty, the humpbacks are kind of the poster child for that, are famous for their songs, which can last up to 30 minutes and have been known to travel vast distances, like, across ocean basins. And the specific frequency ranges used by different whale species for communication do not align with a Van Allen frequency, but rather vary widely depending on species behavior and environmental factors like water depth and noise levels. If you are referring to a specific frequency or phenomenon named after Van Allen in the context of whale communication, it might be a misunderstanding or misnaming, perhaps I phrased it incorrectly, the question, of some aspect of acoustic research or marine biology. However, as of my knowledge base, there isn't a direct link between whale communication and the Van Allen belts or any associated frequency. I think that's pretty cool. And so let's see. Whales make a sound that mimic the frequency of the Van Allen belt. So yeah, so what is it refers to the Van Allen radiation belt, which are zones of charged particles trapped in Earth's magnetic field, not directly related to communication. So yeah, I guess not. So Grok proved us wrong there. But yeah, 15 pages, and it's cool. It gives all of these sources too. We can look at all of those pages. Wikipedia, so yay or nay to that. Whale Facts Quora. This is NOAA, that is the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, U.S. government. It's a weather service, basically. That's how you get the weather data. And then, so that I would view as a credible source. How do whales communicate? American Oceans. I'm not sure about this one. SeaWorld. Not sure how Cornell Education, BBC Earth. So yeah, I mean, I would say that Scientific American, it's behind me. I don't know if that's a credible source anymore. But yeah, then this is the National Institute of NIHV. But anyways, yeah, that's a pretty cool resource. Wasn't what we expected there. But search this on YouTube. Sounds of Earth's radiation belt heard by NASA's probes. I'm gonna search it on Grok, and also because I don't necessarily want to play something that will be sound, because maybe I get a copyright strike. And so I'll search sounds of Earth's radiation belt. Belt heard by NASA probes, just to see how this what Grok returns. Sounds of Earth's radiation belt heard by NASA probes. NASA's radiation belt storm probes, later named the Van Allen probes, have recorded unique sounds from Earth's radiation belts. These sounds are not acoustic in nature, but are electromagnetic waves, specifically plasma waves in the Van Allen belts, which can be converted into audible sounds for human ears. So that's like the frequency of these waves then being like translated. So it's like, we see in the visual spectrum, but if we want to see in night vision or infrared. I've been playing a little bit of Metal Gear Solid, so thinking about that a little bit. But then, we change the spectrum that we're seeing things, switching over to the infrared, translating that information into visual that we can see. And so that's kind of what this is doing, but with sound. Something that, like maybe like a dog can hear some pitches that humans cannot hear, then we translate that into something that humans can hear. And so one of the most notable sounds captured is known as a chorus, which resembles the dawn chorus of birds on Earth. This phenomenon occurs due to interactions between energetic electrons and plasma waves in the radiation belts. The Electric and Magnetic Field Instrument Suite and Integrated Science, this is a horrible acronym, on the Van Allen probes has been instrumental in capturing these sounds, which are described as chirps and whoops. These recordings are significant because they help scientists understand how these waves interact with charged particles, contributing to the acceleration or loss of particles within the belts. Furthermore, the Van Allen probes have also recorded other types of electromagnetic sounds, like proton whistlers, which are generated from lightning strike triggered whistlers interacting with protons. These sounds give scientists insights into the complex environment of Earth's rotation belts, aiding in the understanding of space weather phenomena and how they might impact space technology and human space flight. And I think that comes into play with, if we are to send humans to Mars, which I hope that we get to see in our lifetimes, then there's this, we are protected by Earth's atmosphere, as well as, gravitational field and I believe that this radiation belts that deflect a lot of radiation that would otherwise be harmful to humans. When we're out in space, especially in a spacesuit, even in a space shuttle or what's the starship? That's, that metal hull, it's going to block some, but it's not going to block all of that radiation. So understanding this stuff is really important because of kind of the negative effects that a human traveling, I believe, 6 months to get to Mars, that kind of exposure, what kind of health effects that could have. But part of the, I posted this on X. I'll pull it up in a second. And it's kind of mirroring what I was talking about. I'm sorry, I haven't talked about the metals company at all. I hope that what I'm going over is entertaining. Not as many people here as there were before. But these sounds provide not only scientific data, but also a fascinating auditory representation of the dynamic processes occurring in near-Earth space. So I'm going to like that. And then I'm going to go over to my profile and share something that I had posted, really being inspired just by Interstellar. I personally just got a Blu-ray player and was contemplating getting one of my favorite movies, Interstellar, and I got instead Tenet because it was had a better sale, and because Christmas is coming up, maybe I get Interstellar as a present. Who knows? But yeah, I just saw this trailer and I just found it to be very moving. And so I just wrote this little thing. I don't really write stuff like this on Twitter, but I just mentioned that, this is one of my favorite movies. And so, as someone who pursued a career to better understand the Earth, I was fortunate to do some fieldwork in Antarctica and became enamored with the stories of Shackleton, Scott, and Mawson, who are pioneers during the heroic age of Antarctic exploration, which is about 100 years ago. These people would sail down to Antarctica, spend a year, if not longer, on the continent. And Robert Falcon Scott, he died after getting to the South Pole. Shackleton nearly got to the South Pole, but turned around. All his men survived. A legend down there. And he ended up dying on a return visit to Antarctica, but died around South Georgia, where he's buried. Sir Douglas Mawson, he was an Australian, actually he might have been British, but he was an Australian professor a scientist. These other two were sailors. And yeah, he was a geologist. He was, I think, very badass in the sense that he went down there and did a lot of the studying, but he was like, I feel like the real, like, kind of Indiana Jones, a scientist who, is actually a badass as well. But this is just in Antarctica. All, just great, great stories. I've read a lot about them. And so whenever I would talk about exploring the frontiers of space or Mars with my colleagues, fellow academics, oftentimes their response would be, we should focus on the problems on Earth, which always puzzled me. Because if we are to focus on our immediate problems, why are we in Antarctica? Why do scientists go there to study it? If we are to focus on our immediate problems, why are we studying the ocean? Because we don't live in the ocean. Why would we be studying it? And so while the ocean is important in moderating climate, meaning it's important for us to understand it and to study it, its overturning circulation has a timescale of thousands of years. And so that is basically the timescale that it has a very important role in moderating climate, meaning keeping Earth's climate stable. And so by their logic, shouldn't we be focusing on more immediate problems? Like, why are we studying the Antarctic? Why are we studying the ocean if it's thousands of years? So that's not only thinking about something in space, physical space, but also thinking about things in time. Shouldn't we be thinking about things more immediately? And so my argument is that so many novel technologies are driven by our ventures into space, and a common example is MRI. But I think that a more impactful, especially when talking about the Earth and our environment, I think a more practical example, especially if a goal is to become more energy efficient, is harnessing solar energy. And you think about that as solar arrays that are on satellites, that are on probes that go to Mars, on spaceships or the Kepler telescope, stuff like that. So many technologies are developed for space because you're in a vacuum. There's nothing there. You have to be energy efficient. And so by pushing those boundaries, we bring that technology back to Earth. And coming back to this, the heroic age of Antarctic exploration, we could be having that now with space. We could have been having that. We were having that back in the 60s and the 70s with going to the moon. But then the shuttle program kind of, fell apart, no pun intended. And we were relying on Russia for launching and recovering astronauts from space. So things have changed a lot. And I think that just in a lot of exciting ways. And so, and I guess one other point that I wanted to bring up is we think about this exploration of Antarctica, but also thinking about exploring the New World, North America, crossing oceans. We get into ships and we explore. And there's no difference between that going across an ocean hundreds of years ago, huge risks there. People died doing that. That is in our DNA. The reason why we walk upright is to walk across the fields, to venture from the jungles into the fields and into the beyond, and, all of that stuff. And it is in our DNA to explore, and we have really kind of lost that. And so just like going across the oceans, we need to be going across the oceans of space in our ships to new lands, to new worlds. And they may not be hospitable, but we need to be pushing those bounds and then bringing what we are forced to innovate for that exploration back to Earth. So I think it's just going to be driving so much innovation. And we see that with SpaceX as far as leapfrogging technologies with Starlink and not having to lay cables anymore. We can just connect directly, basically, to the satellites, to the information. And so anyways, this movie inspires a lot, which has been lost in the esteems of academia, or at least that was my experience. I used to be a scientist studying stuff at research academia. And, a lot of what we are seeing, I think universities are getting a lot of backlash now for a variety of reasons. And so at the time, those were not necessarily the reasons why I left, but looking back, I had foresight into what would be happening. And so I'm glad that I left. And so in my view, there is a lot to be hopeful for. And I'm excited for children growing up today who are told, let's figure it out rather than no, we can't. So now is the time. And one of the quotes that I really like from this movie is that, there's a saying that, we don't need engineers, we need farmers, something like that. It's like, no, but we need to be thinking about, we need to have these ideas. We need to be doing that. We don't just, of course, we need farmers, but, we need to be, I need to rewatch the movie again soon. I should have gotten it, but if I don't get it for Christmas or my birthday's in January, if I don't get it for either of those days, then I'll probably get it for myself because I love that movie. But anyways, that's a big tangent. And NASCAR, what's up? I've been rambling on about a bunch of stuff. But I'm going to go over the metals company, then I'll go over your requests, and then I'll probably end the stream. It's been about almost exactly 2 hours. So the metals company, I think this looks really nice to me. This looks like it swept the lows. It could be bearish, so I'd be cautious of it. But, at this point, since it swept that low, I'd say, stop loss around 80 cents or 78 cents. But it swept the lows, so I think that could be viewed as a double bottom here, maybe a triple bottom. This could be, I'm going to take a step back, look on the weekly. Just thinking, if I draw a trend line from like the high over here, of course this breaks out, but no closes above that, no weekly closes above that. We are potentially, below that level. And so we've got some levels to be breaking above. But on the weekly, spinning top, doji there, big wick to upside and downside, could be putting in a bottom, swept the lows here. I feel like this is more likely bottoming than continuing to go down. So I think it looks good, but I could be wrong. So I think good to have a plan if it does go south, like maybe a stop loss at 80.3 or 78 cents. But that could also be selling at the bottom. But I think that time was here. We hit the low. This is on the weekly. So for the week that ended the first week of November 2023, we had a low of 80.3. Then over here, we had a low of 79.79 cents. We swept that low. And so we swept that low again. So maybe it's not looking so great. But I think that, from the lows here, maybe people had a stop loss there. Or maybe they had a stop loss just below and this didn't sweep them out. And this one maybe did. So something to consider there with that. And so NASCAR, I'll go over your requests, but then after these, I'll probably end the stream. And so ZSPC has big IPO, TNMG, big SPAC, RADX, big uplisting, a bit of everything running last week. Benjamin, I have not been to the Clarion-Clipperton zone of the Pacific Ocean. I'd actually have to look that up. I'm going to look over NASCAR stuff. I'll look that up at the end of the stream. I'm just going to go over what he was requesting. The only places that I've been in the Pacific is the out of Seattle and the northeastern Pacific, the Bering Sea, and then into the Arctic Ocean. But I haven't, and I guess the Southern Ocean portion of the Pacific, but not in the, I think it's the East Pacific Rise, probably around where the Clarion-Clipperton zone is. So that's like to the west of California. ZSPC. So I'll look up that. And then also TNMG. And so is that this? I don't know that that's right. TNMG, big D-SPAC, so maybe that's it. And then RADX, Radiopharm, cool. Everything running last week. So let's look at zSPAC first. ZSPC. Oh, and I have these organized by what went down most. Well, I'll do it by a symbol, A to Z. So zSPAC at the bottom there. Okay, yeah, so actually maybe I want to do it so it's at the top. So we see up there, you can see that went down 7% in the after hours, which followed being down 26.5% on the day. This is the daily, not the weekly, as you can see, daily. I recently discovered in Webull you can have the little things in the background there. And so, yeah, so from this, I think it's always good to wait and see what happens with new listings, just to see what the levels are, because here you really don't have much. But so from like the low of 525 to the high of 3269. So it's retraced to the 618. Maybe it could be finding a bottom there. And yeah, I mean, so maybe there's support there. But yeah, I mean, there's very little to be going over with this. But yeah, I guess I'd look for around 1573 to hold as support. But this is all just based on one candle. So, and with this, that being said, maybe I want to look at this on the hourly time frame. So I can look at this going from there to there. And yeah, so maybe a dip buy level would be around 11 at the 786. But just because it's pulling back to that level, huge move to the upside. What percentage? I'm just going to switch back to the daily. On Thursday, it went up 340%. So yeah, I mean, it could have a lot of downside. So good to be cautious with this, because if it does find support at the 786, that's $5 down, almost 33% from current price. And then, the lows though are at 525. So that's, 70% drop. So good to be cautious. But yeah, maybe these are some levels like around 19, around 16, and around 11. Good to keep an eye on with those. And then next I'll do TNMG. I'll switch back to the daily. And so TNMG. Yeah, so I have that as this. It's 1 minute. Oops, I don't know what's going on with this. So I don't know what this is, TNMG, if this is what you're talking about. I don't know why it's pulled up so differently, but TNMG, I don't know what this is. So yeah, that might not be helpful. And somebody requested Porch, and I didn't go over Porch, so that's I will have to go over Porch at the end of this. RADX. So another big wick to the top side. That is a topping signal, I would say. I'll switch over to the 1 hour time frame. And so yeah, from 560 to 5082. If we do a retracement from that low up to that high, maybe it's finding support around 1528. After hours, it pulled back 14% after going up 7% on Friday during market hours. So yeah, maybe that is a level that it could be holding, but it could definitely be breaking below, and it could be going below 560. TNMG company name is TNL. Cool. So I'll delete this one, and I will add a symbol, which is TNL. All right, but yeah, so for RADX, I feel like maybe it's at support for another move, but maybe it doesn't go up that high. Maybe I could see it. Actually, what might be nice is to do a Fibonacci extension here. And then so going from that low up to this high, levels might be approximate. And so about there. And so maybe it could be bouncing going up to as high as 61 would be the 100%. So basically a measured move of that. But I think that could be a little ambitious. Maybe it goes from here 786. The 50% is around 38.41. So maybe that's a level. We do have the 382 around 33, and we can see this candle here, got up to that level, but closed there, moved above, but closed there. So maybe there's some resistance around 33, and that's close to a 2x from current price. So maybe that's something to consider. And TNL, I'll pull that up, which is right here. Do this on the daily. This looks good to me because it's just been like moving higher. And I'm actually going to look at this on the weekly. Maybe I want to look at this on the monthly even. Well, there's this big gap up here. That's pretty crazy. $84. Oops. Why am I doing that? I want it to be dashed in blue. So that's something to maybe pay attention to. Something that I kind of like about this is, if I just connect this high from, this is monthly, so March of 2015, and the highs over here, we get a very nice test of that level here. And it looks like we closed January above that. So I think this looks really good. What we can do from this low to this high and then back down, we can do a Fibonacci extension like I had just done. And so let's do that. And so that could be suggesting going up to the 100%. That would be getting to like 108. So that's just about a 2x from current price. I might actually, I'll just leave those levels. Sorry if it's a little cluttered. And then I was thinking to also do a retracement from, let's see, I'm just trying to think. No, I'll leave those. Maybe I'll make them light blue though. I just like light blue. It's to me, a much more soothing color than white or yellow. But yeah, I'll do just a regular Fibonacci retracement from the high here to the low here. And 786 is around $80, which is around that gap, which is around the 786 here. Excuse me. So yeah, a number of levels there, but kind of, if I mute these retracements so they're not as bold. What happened to the other one? Oh yeah, it's still light blue, but just I'll mute it. So yeah, this to me, that looks really compelling. And I connected it over here, but I could have just as well, connected it over here. No closes for the monthly candles above that. No closes above until here when we broke above, then gapped down. And now that, I think that this could be going to 85. This is a monthly time frame though. So it could be going to 85 over the course of the next couple years. So yeah, this is travel and leisure. This is definitely one you want to leisurely hold, not be in too much of a rush. But yeah, and here, what do we have? If I connect these two pivot highs and draw a line over here, does that kind of look like a little bit of a inverse head and shoulders pattern? A little bit not so great, but yeah, I just want to make sure the armpit over here connects. Or maybe I could, do it to something like that. So there's a left shoulder here, there, and that. And so that, yeah, I mean, that could be suggesting price to be going much higher, but these are monthly candles. So looking at it on the daily, oh, yeah, look, gap up to that level, which may have been fudged by changing the time scale, but got to move up, a bounce, a retest. This, to me, looks like a bull flag following this downtrending consolidation. Big wick to the downside, hammer candle. And this looks a little bit indecisive. This is a bearish engulfing candle here on Friday. But it looks like, to me, I mean, that is effectively, a breakout and retest. So I think this looks good. So yeah, I like it. And I forgot to go over Porch. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll look up the Clarion-Clipperton zone of the Pacific Ocean, and just to see where that's at. And for Porch, dang it. Yeah, this to me looks like, it's kind of like a rising three methods, except there's just two red candles here. If I switch over to the 4-hour time frame, yeah, I mean, it's, big green move up, consolidation, and, yeah, I mean, this looks like it could be like a little mini bull flag there. I don't know. From like, the highs here, that looks like it was a breakout. If I switch back over to the daily, I think this looks good. This gap being left behind, I think that's good. It has strength. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just like, this move over here. I'm surprised I have all of these lines. I'm actually going to delete my old lines. But yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's like this. Rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. And so where do I think that this is going from here? Maybe it's going up to around $7. I just sneezed, but I muted myself for it, so you guys didn't have to hear that. So yeah, I think I'm going to end the ticker review on that, and I'm just going to look up the Clarion-Clipperton zone of the Pacific Ocean. And I'm going to do that using Grok just because I've been enjoying using this as a resource. I'm going to like this one that we just read over previously. And so where on a map of the Pacific Ocean is the Clarion-Clipperton zone? Clarion-Clipperton zone, or the CCZ, is a vast area located in the central and eastern Pacific. Here's how you can locate it on a map. Show me a map of the Clarion-Clipperton zone. And so it's not helpful. So yeah, we'll have to look it up in Google, I guess. Which is around, I'm just going to type this in. Oh wait, that's the CCZ is named after the Clarion and Clipperton fracture zones, which are geological feature on the ocean floor. This is of significant interest because it is one of the richest areas of polymetallic nodules on the seabed, which contain valuable minerals like manganese, nickel, copper, and cobalt. Please note the exact boundaries might be subject to slight variations depending on the source or specific environmental or geological definitions, but this general area would give you a good starting point to locate the Clarion-Clipperton zone on any Pacific regional map. And so I actually, when I was still working in academia doing research, I had applied to go on a submersible that might have been going to the Clarion-Clipperton Clipperton Zone. And they were compelled by my application and offered me to like basically listen in on their planning, but I did not get to participate in it. And so I just didn't do anything. It's like, great. I mean, you rejected me. So, yeah, let's look at this map of the Clipperton Zone, or Clarion Clipperton Zone is an environmental management area of the Pacific Ocean administered by the International Seabed Authority, or ISA. It includes the Clarion Fracture Zone and the Clipperton Fracture Zone. Geological submarine fracture zones, Clarion and Clipperton, are two of the 5 major lineations of the Northern Pacific floor and were discovered by the Scripps Institution of Oceanography. I applied to go to grad school there and got rejected. And the CCZ is regularly considered for deep sea mining due to the abundant presence of manganese nodules. The CCZ extends around 4,500 miles east to west and spans approximately 4.5 million square kilometers. The fractures themselves are unusually mountainous topographical features, and in 2016, investigation of the seafloor in the C zone was found to contain an abundance of diversity of life. More than half of the species collected were new to science. And so this map, I'll click on it in a second so we can see it a little bigger. The major Pacific trenches, 1 through 10. And this is also referred to as like the Ring of Fire, because there are a lot of, it might also just be the whole entire Pacific Ocean, because it's spreading this ridge that you see here. This is the topography or the bathymetry of the seafloor. So you see, the mountains here of the Rockies, the High Sierras, and all of that. That mountain range, basically just extends here in the ocean, and that ocean is spreading apart very slowly. It's building. It's like the mountains. Actually, yeah, I'm probably wrong about that. I think that the spreading is more around over here. Yeah, I that's not stuff that I studied, so take that with a grain of salt. But no, because yeah, when it's coming apart, that would be, yeah. So this has to be converging. These are new mountains, whereas the Appalachians are older. They're not as, yeah. So this is rising. It's converging. And so anyways, the fracture zone, the Clipperton fracture zone 15. So no, I have not been, the Clipperton fracture zone is 15 and 14. I have not been here, so I've been out of like Seattle here. I did some work in the Gulf of Alaska, and I have gone out from Seward, Alaska, as well as from not Kodiak Island, Dutch Harbor, one of the Aleutian Islands, and gone up through the Bering Sea. So I've been over there. And so, okay, cool. This map is probably better to look at. Clarion Clipperton Zone. So no, I have not been this far south in the Pacific in the northern hemisphere. I've been much further south in the southern hemisphere. But coming out here from Seattle, I basically went on let's see, one time left Seattle and came back, and we basically went up here and did kind of like a Big Dipper type of pattern, going up in the Gulf of Alaska, and then came back to Seattle. And then another time from Seward, which I think is right around here, I went on a ship in 2021, the last time I went out to sea, and probably the last time I'll ever go out to sea. Because it was the end of my career and the experience wasn't that great. The support that I got was not very good. And so we came down here, went up through the Bering Sea to the Chukchi Sea, and we actually went through the Northwest Passage, and I ended up in Greenland. but we actually didn't go this route. We went up this way. So it was a very interesting experience. And yeah, you can read about the Northwest Passage, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, but there was an expedition that went through there. They got lead poisoning, they went crazy, and they resulted in cannibalism. They all died. That's the Terror and Erebus went through there, the two ships. The Franklin expedition, that's what I was thinking. And then the other time that I went up in the Pacific, I actually got on and off a ship in Dutch Harbor, which is one of the Aleutian Islands. We went through the Bering Sea, through the Chukchi Sea to the North Pole, somewhere up here, and then came back down. But yeah, I've not been over here. And so maybe TMC could have a work from home job just for you. It's just an idea that came to mind. Yeah, that'd be funny. No, but I'm like, for me, one of the things that really intrigued me about studying the ocean was just like being fascinated with how samples were collected. And I went out and did that. But as you move higher up in your career, you become more costly to go out to sea. And so you spend less time going out to sea, you spend more of your time writing, whether that's papers or grants applying for funding. And then more junior scientists go out to sea. And so there's less of that. And also, due to the advancements of robotics, sensors, stuff like that, there's less of a need for physical human beings to go out to sea when you can just basically throw little robots overboard and they can test the waters for you. So it's just, there's less of that. And also, I don't know, guys are familiar with the DEI, Diversity, Inclusion, and Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiative. There's a big push for that. Being a white male who's straight, I'm kind of becoming a minority in that sense. Academia and science generally is oversaturated with white men. And while I don't think that, it's a merit-based system, I felt like I would have been held back because of, my demographic. And also, with that, I felt like there should be more diversity. I think that's good. I did feel like I was falling behind, and I felt like ways that I was excelling was by having a YouTube channel that focused on communicating climate science and ocean science. And I then did not think that that should become the standard, just raising the bar higher and higher to impossible levels. And really the job was just writing a bunch of papers that were boring, reading a bunch of papers that were boring, doing way more work than you could handle, not getting paid enough for the amount of work that you're doing. Like I work in a factory. You don't need a degree to have the job that I have, although the degree that I have makes me much better at my job. I get paid more now living in the Midwest, which is very cheap to live, than I was getting paid in Vancouver and in Miami. And so, it just seemed like it was the wrong career path for me. And yeah, so I'll do a video at some point before the end of the year, kind of going over stuff I'm thankful for, going over some stories. That'll probably just be me rambling about stuff. But yeah, just stories of experiences that I've had in my life that I'm really grateful for. That in all honesty, I don't talk too much about because I think a lot of people would perceive the stories that I tell as me to be bragging, and or for somebody to feel bad that this guy's done these interesting things. Why haven't I done those interesting things? And so I don't tend to talk about that stuff too much because, I don't know. I feel like it's can bring people down, and for me it's just, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I guess like the way that my brain works and stuff, it's kind of odd. And I was able to navigate those pathways. I was able to excel in a lot of ways. But at the same time, I was able to recognize a lot of flaws in that path. And I decided I did not want to do that with my life anymore. I miss going out to sea. I miss the wonderful people that I worked with. But yeah, it wasn't right for me. And I think that navigating something like YouTube, the stock market, crypto, and learning about all these great innovations, just exciting for me. So yeah, you got to do what excites you. And I felt like I was working constantly and not making any progress in that prior area that I was working in. And I feel like I'm making more progress in my life now than I was then. So I think that's a pretty valuable thing. But yeah, it's been 2.5 hours. So I'm going to sign off so we can all get some rest before the market opens tomorrow. I will add timestamps to this because I got requested for it and I feel like it adds value. And because I appreciate you guys. Thank you for hanging out. And, one of the things I think just a couple of people still hanging out. But one of the things, kind of on the note of being thankful about things, a group of friends that I previously had, I'm kind of like in a space where I'm very focused on growth of the channel, getting better at trading, stuff like that. And, I don't have too much of a friend circle, and definitely don't really have a friend circle where I can talk about stocks like this and stuff. So, really thankful for you guys for hanging out because it's an area where I can just talk and be myself, even if there is somewhat of a performance in being on camera and stuff like that. I'm just talking about my ideas, chatting with you guys and stuff. And so, yeah, I appreciate that you've taken an interest. And I think what I might do, I'll probably put out a video at the beginning of 2025, just kind of sharing my thoughts on the direction of the channel. But rather than, trying to crank out at least 1 or 2 or 3 videos a day like I was doing to really grow the channel, what I might start doing is doing the Saturday options video. I like that a lot for myself. It's really helpful for me, hopefully beneficial to others. Continue to do that. Continue to do ticker requests live on Sundays and try to just be more routine with that. Do the AMC video on Fridays and maybe also include maybe GameStop or Plug or other stocks that might complement that. And then maybe do another video that just stands out to me, like the BlackBerry or Intel right now is standing out to me as being pretty interesting. Just do one that really stands out. And rather than, something's taken off, I'm going to do a video that chases it and try to get views. And so really, there will be a weekly options video, weekly TRL, weekly AMC video, weekly miscellaneous video, and then maybe I just take clips from Ticker Request Live. I think that would be sustainable for me. And I don't think that the channel would necessarily stay monetized doing that, but I'd rather go over things keeping a level head than chasing stuff for views. So, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, Benjamin, it's always good to have you here and stuff. I appreciate the support and hanging out. But yeah, it's past my bedtime if I was working tomorrow. I'm not, but I've got to be productive tomorrow. So I am going to sign off. And before I sign off, just a few people left. I'm sure you guys already have. But if you have not already, please make sure you like the stream. It does help out. And if you guys aren't subscribed already, of course, I do appreciate that. And and share this with anybody that you think might enjoy just listening to somebody ramble about stocks who's and crypto, on occasion, who's just very interested in like the psychological aspects of it and just trying to refine the strategy. But yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I will do Ticker Request Live again on Sunday. And we'll see. Maybe I'll have more than the few videos over the week. Benjamin's final comment. When you end the live stream, search sounds of... Okay, yes, so I will do that. Okay. So I'll put sounds in quotes. Oh, that's why. Okay, because they're not actually sounds of Earth's radiation belt heard by NASA probes. Sounds of Earth's radiation belt heard by NASA's probes. So I'll search that. Let's see. So, okay, so this is, I imagine, what you are requesting. I am going to copy the link address, and I'm going to post it in the live chat if others want to listen to that. But yeah, I'll end the stream and I'll listen to that right after it. But yeah, thank you so much. It was fun not only talking about stocks, but going off on other tangents and stuff. And yeah, I hope that we have a good week. I feel like it's going to be a good week. I imagine that if there is, I think, inflation numbers coming out or some kind of numbers coming out, that there might be some volatility around that. But I think that we're kind of in like dip buy mode territory. So if there is a dip, that we might be rallying into the end of the year. So, but yeah, I'll see you guys later in the comments on X or yeah, elsewhere. I'll probably be posting stuff to the channel, if not making videos. So I'll always check that. But yeah, thank you so much for hanging out, guys. It's been fun. I'll see you later. Take care.